Hey, this is David Lee Kim, co-founder of Omniscient Digital, and you're listening to The Long Game. In this episode, we chat with Thomas Schiavone. Thomas is the CEO and co-founder of Calixa, a product-led sales platform that arms reps with the product insights they need to prospect, close, and grow accounts in a self-service funnel. Thomas's first taste of product-led sales was in 2010 as Twilio's first product manager. That was before product-led was even a thing. His team built a tool that the sales team used to understand product usage and identify product qualified leads. Again, this is way before product led was even a mainstream concept. Before starting Calixa, Thomas was the VP of product at Sift, where he met Fred, the CTO, and partnered up to build Calixa in 2020. In this conversation, we talk about how a product led motion empowers sales teams and the common stumbling blocks that companies face when implementing product-led sales. And of course, we talk about how Calixa helps companies implement a product-led sales motion. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Thomas Schiavone. All right, everybody. Today we have Thomas Schiavone. I got to say that as many times as possible so I don't mess it up. Thomas is CEO and co-founder of Calixa on the pod here. So Thomas, it's so great to have you on The Long Game. Thanks for making the time.
Great to be here. Thanks so much.
Great. So let's jump straight into it. I think you have a very interesting career background. You've been at companies like Google, AdMob, Twilio, Sift, Netlify, to name a few, maybe that's all of them. Maybe I missed a few, but you're currently CEO and co-founder of Calixa. How did you get here? Well, what were the milestones that led to you founding this company?
I'd say twofold. One is like why startups. And I think back in 2007, jumped into AdMob when it was about 25 employees. Didn't really know what I was doing, but I wasn't really afraid of anything because it was just like, I'm early in my career. What could go wrong? And then I sort of got addicted to the startup, moving fast, figuring out, being terrified, all that sort of stuff. And so it just became super addictive. So, within a few weeks, I knew I just always wanted to be at startups. So it was just sort of the pace, the fear, everything was just like, it was electric. So then why Calixa? I think when I look back in my career, I've always sort of seen like the power that putting data in front of actually more importantly, insights in front of customer facing people and empowering them. I think too often it's, sort of just, you kind of think of them, try to think of them as robots, tell them exactly what to do. I'm a firm believer of like, giving people the insights they need to be successful at their job and how do we do that? And, when I was at Twilio, so the first PM at Twilio, 15th employee. Back then it was probably, I'm guessing, hundreds of developers signing up a day. Then it became hundreds a month, then thousands a month, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. And as the signups started to scale, we tried to figure out who to be talking to. And that data wasn't in Salesforce. We couldn't figure out just by the signup, like that signups part actually didn't even make it into Salesforce back then. But we built an internal tool that sort of showed us who was signing up and what they were doing, right? And we found that the best sales opportunities were the people who were signing up, poking around, and then figuring out what they were doing were a good indication that we should be talking to them. And those were found this sort of what is now sort of called this led sales, product-led growth. People who are already using your product, figuring out, you just may need to go in there to help them accelerate the sale. You may have to go in there and talk to them to sort of reduce sort of risk that they find a competitor, and ultimately to penetrate deeper in the account. And
did y'all build a homegrown like amplitude mix panel-ish internal tool then?
Yeah. So it was essentially it queried off our sort of production databases, and it was it's essentially like analytic roll-ups against like each of the users and the accounts, what aspects of the product were they were using, how much were they using it, when did they last sign in, and so that became sort of the core thing, how to measure who to be talking to. If somebody signed up and didn't really do anything, we shouldn't be talking to them. But if they start, buying phone numbers and making test calls, and they're like, okay, and what company they're from, and then how many developers are doing that, and then you sort of very easily sort of put together with those sort of product usages, that intent data, who you should be talking to.
Yeah, that's so interesting because you did that like before product-led growth and product sales were a thing. So I'm curious, as you were building out that internal tooling, who are your peers that you were learning from? Was it just internal folks, or were there other companies or folks you were speaking to figure out how to set that up?
So first I give credit to Jeff, the CEO of Twilio, who, just puts this insane focus on customers and like making sure you understand the customer, so I think walk a mile on a customer's shoe, just really empathizing with the customer and what they're doing. And so
is that what I saw on your shirt just now? Walk a mile.
Yeah. So it's definitely inspired by that. So that sort of customer centricity, and the only way to be customer centric is actually understanding what they're doing with your product, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing about sort of product led growth is sort of like his insane obsession with sort of like empowerment, right? And like, how do you empower developers? You give them great documentation, you make it easy to sign up and let them run, right? And then if they need support, they can talk to technical people, you have evangelists out there. And so I think through the nature of like figuring out what makes an insanely happy developer, that sort of filtered into essentially what product-led growth is, sort of that empowerment and trust that the user can figure it out if you give them the right in developer land, right documentation, right APIs, and products easy to use, they can adopt it. Same thing for business users. If you give them great products that are easy to use, that have sort of almost consumer grade experiences, business software can be adopted that way too.
Yeah. And if I recall correctly, was Twilio the company that ran those billboard ads, like Ask Your Developer?
Yep, they're still on there. If you're driving up from on 101, you can still see an Ask Your Developer thing. And that's just the same sort of thing about that empowerment and trusting, where in that case, the decision-making power is being pushed down to the developer. The same way that in the software land, decision-making is being pushed down. Oftentimes, actually, companies are not aware of what software is being adopted by the team because it's so easy to adopt software today.
Yeah. So you've mentioned this concept of empowerment a lot and giving the right insights to customer-facing roles. So who are you currently empowering with Calixa, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so our core focus today is empowering sales teams that are running a product-led sales motion, who have this signups coming at them left and right, figuring out who they should be talking to, and then really helping them drive that. So first, it's prioritizing who to talk to. Second, it's what should they be talking about? It's really like getting that 360 view of the customer. 3, it's about making it easy to execute any play to close that customer, right? So like, how do we integrate all the actions and data and everything that they need to do? And then once they've closed it, how do they help grow that account, right? Because it's the same sort of thing. You need to be checking in what they're doing, how they're doing it, and then that will sort of, in some ways, that growing motion is actually just a furthering of the sales process. Because for many of these product-led growth companies, you're not optimizing for top dollar with the first sale. The first sale is you're trying to actually speed to $1, knowing that you can grow that account over time through the nature of the software.
And you've mentioned, or we both mentioned, these phrases of product sales, product-led growth. What do all these terms mean? And I know we've spoken about this previously, where there was a period where people are like, oh, product-led growth is just a free trial. And we're like, no, that's not it. So how do you define these different motions? I know Calixa focuses more on the product sales aspect, but how do you define them? How do you differentiate them?
Yeah, the way I think it was, you can't have product-led sales without product-led growth. So fundamentally, product-led growth is, the way I think about it is it's like this fusion between marketing and product to really make first, the product has to be able to be adopted by end users. It has to be able to grow through end users, sharing with the broader team or growing usage there. So first, like, the product has to be easy to use, easy to adopt. It has to be able to be that sort of wedge into an organization that can then sort of take off. So if your product is not like that, you can't be product led. Thing 2 is like to really make products take off is to get that big inbound funnel. If they're easy to adopt, then you can like sort of like figure out ways to sort of get them into the market such that they, such that they grow through different channels so that they're actually viral loops within the product. And I could sort of look at that sort of product-led growth. This is a great fusion between product and marketing to achieve that. And then lastly, so you get this great inbound funnel of people signing up, people adopting the product. That's when you can layer on product-led sales, because you have this a lot of people signing up, and there's a lot of goodness in there, right? And you should not just wait for the hand raisers, right? This is a separate motion from your sort of top-down enterprise motion. That's still going to exist. I'm not saying don't do that. But what I am saying is you have all these signups, thousands, tens of thousands a month. There are going to be many companies in there that you should be selling into. And the best thing is like the product is the wedge into the company. And then you can have a fundamentally different conversation. It's about what, they've already shown they want to use it. Now your job as selling is sort of like, in many ways, it's this consultative sell where you're helping them better adopt the product, understand the value, get the resources they need. So it just fundamentally shifts the nature of the conversation where, top down, you're trying to get somebody even just interested to have a conversation, whereas this sort of bottoms up, this product-led sales is they're interested. Now, I kind of think about it as like, and I use sports metaphors that I don't like, that I'm not good at. I've surfed once, but imagine it's like sort of this customer like inbound interest as a wave that you as a salesperson have to surf, right? There's this interest, right? And you have to like leverage it, right? But it's great that it's coming at you. That's how I think of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And I think one thing I've noticed too is there was sort of a period where it's like, just build a freemium product, bottoms up, your low price point, they can just swipe a credit card and use it. And at some point, I think a lot of these companies maybe hit a growth ceiling and realize, oh, wait, we do need an enterprise sales team. And we have all this product data now, but we need an enterprise sales team to sell the bigger deals. Otherwise, it's a finicky business model, right? Like you're focused on volume rather than big deals, and that could limit your revenue growth.
And kind of back to your point, so like, what is it more than just a free trial? I kind of think of it as like, what I often say, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so what are the company's priority? What do they value? And sort of like product-led growth and product-led sales is a cross-cutting strategy across product, marketing, sales, even engineering is impacted because based on these decisions, right? It's a whole company. It affects the entire company, and you sort of have to align around it. You can't just say, I just have a free trial, I'm good, right? It's really about all the different touch points and around the customer and the customer journey.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I know we had a separate conversation around, hey, what are the how do you get PLS or product-led sales to actually work? And you started mentioning a couple mistakes there. So what do B2B SaaS companies often get wrong about building a product-led sales motion?
What do they get wrong? So I don't want to sort of focus on what they get wrong, because it's sort of like, I think it's new enough that I think it's more about like people are still trying to figure it out. So I want to sort of like, where are sort of the stumbling blocks? I think stumbling block one is that one is just not making it sort of a proper company priority in that alignment between marketing and sales and product, right? Because when you think about it, is the product is generating leads for sales, right? And so that understanding between them is a core thing. So you have to really sort of make sure there's alignment between these three groups. And you can't do product-led sales in a vacuum. Thing two is, I think the traditional tooling is not set up to run a proper product-led sales motion, right? So much of what we're talking about is getting insight into the customer. And so how do you power reps with the right data, the right signals, the right alerts, everything that's centered around the customer and their journey? You talk to a lot of companies who are like, some jump into Mixpanel. That's a little bit complicated. It's great maybe for product and engineering teams. It's not right for a sales team. Some say, we have, jump into Tableau. Well, it's a little complicated, maybe a little slow. And then I'm jumping around to, maybe I can push the data into the CRM. Like, you can, but it's not really meant for product data, time series data. It doesn't really get you that view. So it's really to run that motion. So fundamentally, I believe you need one place to have that visibility across the journey, something that can process the data, handles the data natively, and then gives reps an easy to use interface to understand what's going on, get alerted about it, and take action on it all in one place so that they're not jumping around, 6 or 7 different tools. So those are like two key things to me.
You even mentioned ops. So it sounds like it's product, marketing, sales, and you kind of need ops wrapped around all that to tie it all together.
Oh, for sure. I mean, ops is at the core of this, ops and data. Like every organization is slightly different, and didn't mean to single anyone out. I'm seeing, sometimes sales ops take, leading the charge here. So I actually recently spoke to a marketing ops person who's like, hey, we're responsible for driving leads to sales. We've traditionally been doing this other way. I really want to get more scientific. I want to run a product-led sales motion with the sales team, and these are better leads, right? Sometimes it's the data team internally. So we're finding like, it's interesting, like each company is like slightly different. I think it's because there's a sort of a lack of maturity in what sort of product-led growth and product-led sales mean, that like the stakeholder varies at each company. And it's basically like, what are the strengths and weaknesses of each company and who's sort of leading the charge. I think, 5 years from now, will you have VPs of product-led growth? Quite possibly, right? Because it's a cross-cutting thing, somebody needs to take the charge. And without that, it can be pretty challenging, right? Like you got it. So
the challenge around alignment is an interesting one to me, because I've run into that before at different organizations I've been. And so you have product, you have sales, you have marketing, the ops rep for all of that. What does alignment look like to you? And like, if you think about the owner of the initiative, like who owns it? Is it marketing? Is it product? Is it a growth person? How do you think about that?
Well, the exciting thing that I'm seeing today is with the tooling we're providing and the ease with which we sort of like make the integration easy. Sales is taking the charge today, right? And sales is saying, hey, I own a number. I need to generate revenue from this. I want to be in control. And traditionally, that might not be the case. But I think with the right tooling, we put sales in control of their destiny, even if for something that's traditionally been challenging. I think longer term, does this evolve? Yes. But I think right now, so many people are like, because it's like, is it you? Is it me? You've seen that like Spider-Man meme where they're all sort of pointing at each other. What I'm seeing from sales leaders is like, I want to do this. I got this. This is the tooling for me. I can connect it to my warehouse. I can get empowered. I don't need to ask for favors anymore. I'm just going to start running my motion.
Wow. Yeah.
Because other people have other priorities. And if it's not sort of a proper company priority, like marketing saying, well, I'm generating traffic to the website and people signing up, like, but this is, so I think it's been exciting to see that with the right empowerment, sales taking control of their destiny.
Yeah. There's a little bit of irony in that, right? Because it's product-led sales, and like I imagine a scenario might be sales is saying to product, hey, we need this data to help qualify who we should be talking to. And product's like, we don't have the bandwidth. We have a roadmap to build. Marketing has their demand gen numbers to hit. They don't have time to implement a new product. And sales is like, you know what? I don't need to deal with your systems. Let us just, and we'll get into this, but however Calixa works, like we'll just pull all that data into Calixa, and then that'll just help us qualify.
Yeah, and I don't blame anyone. This is sort of an organizational problem, right? Everyone has their own priorities.
It's new.
So if they're not set properly at the top, it's going to run like this, and that's fine, because we're building a tool such that we're even seeing like some engineering leaders being like, "This is awesome. Let's give sales what they need." And then they can go run, right? And I don't have to worry about further requests. Everyone is busy at every even probably unsuccessful companies, but at every successful company, everyone is busy. So how do we without that proper empowerment, which I think is going to take time, or that proper alignment, which I think is going to take time as the market matures. You're going to need ways for somebody to say, like, I need to go do it myself. And it's my top priority, even if it's not yours. Is there tooling that can help me?
Yeah. And so maybe we can get into the specifics, and you don't have to give away any of your secrets, but, and I'll give a little bit more color to this, but the question is, how does Calixa work? I started thinking about it as like reverse ETL, but I think I read that that's the wrong way to think about it, or maybe it's like nuanced, but yeah, explain to the listeners, how does Calixa work and how does it help?
Yeah, so I think there are two, let's say two key parts. There's more than that, but it's sort of thinking about two levels. One is actually the level that we don't want our end customers to think about, which is the data layer, right? So you get all the data into Calixa as and then let me start over. So the thing with Calixa is you get the data into Calixa, and we want all your data possible. So it's not trying to do away with reverse ETL. Reverse ETL is awesome and great. We actually work with the reverse ETL players like Census and iTouch, so it's a great way to get data into us. But what our magic is pulling the data in and then connecting it, right? The hardest thing that people have is connecting it and making sense of it.
So does Calixa deal with the unique user IDs and like assigning that and mapping? Wow. Okay.
And even better, so like you have your product event feed, like we'll auto generate metrics from that feed. So you don't have to think like, are those metrics in your warehouse? Oh no. Okay, that's fine. As the events come in, we're auto generating metrics for your support tickets, for any of your amplitude mixed panel segment feeds. We'll auto generate metrics on top of that, as well as you can just push your own metrics into us. We'll take it all. And the magic that we have is how do we then surface it in an easy to use interface where this is the case where like ops loves it because they can easily expose different parts of the data. Any of the properties on the account. Hey, this is a property on the user. Oh, actually, there's a Salesforce field that's really, oh, great, no worries. They're all connected, so just expose that. And so the ability to like easily connect data, expose data, and then put into an easy to use interface is sort of like a core thing. And then like doing magical things with the data is like the part two. It's like magic number one would be sort of the ability to automate on it. And so, constantly processing your data in real time and say, hey, maybe you want to send usage alerts to reps based on ownership. So like when one of their accounts hits a certain usage threshold, route it to the rep. Well, we have all that data to connect it to know, to see the spike, to know who owns it, and then being able to send it to them via Slack or any other means, right? Other thing is like, which we just released, pretty exciting, AI prospecting. Basically, we have all your product data, we have all these attributes. You tell us who our good accounts are, and then we can build machine learning models to like deliver insights against that. And so that's another thing that I think is super interesting about what we do, because we have all the data. We can really help you understand what patterns are important for the accounts you should be talking to.
Yeah, and we talked about that a little bit earlier, but what I'm seeing as someone who's familiar with the space is there's a lot of folks popping up and trying to solve the same challenge that you're trying to solve. And I think each person or each company seems to be trying to do it differently. So how do you think about differentiation and like maybe the unique space that Calixa fits in? And it sounds like AI prospecting is one of those things.
Yeah, I think about what we're building, and it's like these three key pillars. It's execution, automation, and measurement. So execution is like the sales execution. It's sort of like who should I be talking to, and then like actually doing something about it. So we have the ability for you to prioritize and take action, run playbooks all on our tool. Automation is like once you get comfort and understanding with doing things in a manual way, there are many things that you'll want to do in sort of like in a more automated way, right? Sort of like, hey, let's auto create an opportunity for anyone with a high PQL score, and then we can track it in. Like, you might want to do that. You save reps clicks. That's great, right? And so we believe that because we're at the center of all this data, how do we help you sort of orchestrate across everything? And then measurement is key. Like you're doing all this stuff. Is it good or bad? So we don't want you just to be doing stuff. And so that whole platform, if you don't have that execution, automation, and measurement as your three key pillars, people are going to have to fill in different parts of the stack with different tools. What people are really asking for is a true platform for product-led sales where they can do all three things.
Yeah, got it. That's a helpful framework, not just to think about your product, but for folks just building companies in general or building out organizations.
Yeah, and to the part, I think one part about that, what people find challenging through actually across that range of those three pillars is it's basically like, there's just so much data. How do I make sense of it? Who should I be talking to? Who's good? Who's not good? What are the signals? And that's why we've said like, hey, yeah, there is too much data. This is why we need to leverage machines. And so like machine learning is sort of a core cuts across the platform because it influences all those three things, all those three pillars. And the goal is you tell us what good accounts look like. You just which accounts they are. You can say, hey, any account on this billing plan, go find accounts like that. And we say, hey, we're going to predict which accounts are going to grow up to be like that. And we can actually build multiple models for different things. Some people care about free to paid. Some people got paid to growth. Or like we can build multiple models in parallel because that's sort of how sophisticated our system is.
Yeah. How do you think about, so where my mind goes is it seems like the product can help, it can support or take over a couple of different people's roles. I can think of roles in marketing ops or like data teams, and they're like, hey, we can build this in Salesforce, or we can build this in our data warehouse and whatever. Like, you don't have to buy that. I can do that.
Yep.
How do you work around those objections, I guess, is the question. Because I can imagine folks feeling a bit sensitive around like, wait, that's my job. Like, I can do that for you.
I think we used to get that maybe a year ago, definitely 2 years ago. I think as this has matured and as our capabilities have become more sophisticated, I think people are saying that less. And the rate at which, so you have to divide like the customer base into like two, like for startups adopting our product, like 50 employees or less. There's none of that, right? They're just like, you got a tool, let's go, right? I've got so many other things. For large companies, that's when you start to get into people who have a job who's just that thing, and they can be territorial. That's becoming less the case. And we're even seeing people who previously said that come back to us and say, okay, I'm open to talk now.
What changed?
I think the way many things change in companies of any size is it becomes an organizational priority. And if you're getting in the way of an organizational priority, you likely won't be there, yeah. Right? Somebody says, hey, we're going this way. This is the most important thing for the company. And you see momentum in that direction. You can no longer say like, I'm worried about how adding this extra thing is going to affect my job. So I think one is just sort of the organization. But in general, I think overall we've received support. I would say that the one place in the past where we had seen some friction was anyone who owns sales tooling, but we now have people actually who own that coming to us because they're like, hey, there are too many tools. And the key thing is they all want you to play nice with Salesforce. That's not a problem. Yeah. Like we're not going to play nice with Salesforce. We're gonna we have some cool things that we do. That like we have a Chrome extension just for Salesforce, so you can actually be just browsing around Salesforce and you're gonna be see your Calixa data on the side. And then hey, if you want to jump into Calixa, great. And then from Calixa, you can actually drive action into Salesforce if you want as well.
Okay, so yeah, I remember one of the objections I've heard is, hey, why don't we just have all this data in Salesforce? But what we were saying is you can view it while you're in Salesforce, but it doesn't have to live in Salesforce. Like here's the overlay. Like you're looking at this contact, now you can see their product usage data here.
And we just have a lot more flexibility in iterating on UI when we're decoupled from that more rigid data model. Nothing against Salesforce. I mean, it's the de facto standard. All these companies end up using it, and I understand why it exists, and it's quite valuable. But I think for a product-led sales motion, you need access to this product data. And Salesforce is great. They're an investor in us. And I think they understand how PLG and PLS are sort of changing the rules and seeing that they're interested in how this is going to evolve with time.
Yeah. And so we talked a lot about PLS and Calixa's role and how it supports. What companies do you see doing product-led sales well, and like maybe individuals you want to give a shout out to that listeners can go look up and learn from or like reach out to?
This is the question that I didn't have a good answer for, that I might have to come back with. So we have to come back to that, and you and I can brainstorm something. But let's get back to that.
Okay, yeah, we can get that. That one's tough.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough because you play favorites, and it's like anyway. So
yeah. All right. So what are you focused on for Calixa right now? What's going on at the company?
that framework of execution automation measure. There's a lot of depth to that, right? And so I think we've built a great platform that can do each of those three things. And now it's really about going really, really deep in it. And that's still an early emerging space. And so I think that's the value of working closely with customers who give us new insights to help us shape where we're going. Because I don't want to it hasn't been figured out. I think we're going in a great direction. I really love what we have. Customers like what we have, but like what we have today, and what we have 3 years on, we're going to be much better, much more informed because it's us responding to the market and then the market responding to us, and like the sort of where that sort of stabilizes and nets out is to be decided, right? Because there could be new trends. I mean, I'll give you an example. We started the company about technically we quit our jobs about 3 years ago to go figure out an idea. It's roughly three years ago to the day. Back then, when we first were kicking around ideas, the data warehouse, Snowflake, and then subsequently reverse ETL, those were not common, especially at startups, right? And I had like a bad taste in my mouth. Anyone said data warehouse, I was like, oh fuck, Redshift, it's crappy. What are we? Oh, yeah.
Then came the modern data stack.
Then came the modern data stack. All this retooling, DBT. Everyone just like, I do that. Zing, and you're like, oh shit, right? And then actually in the first year we were building the product, we actually shifted quite a bit because we saw that emergence. And like, I'll give a shout out here to our investor from Kleiner, Bucky Moore, who was kind of around me. He's like, hey, Thomas, you should check out the data warehouse. I was like, yeah, it's fine. We'll be thing. He's like, hey, it's really important. It's a new trend I'm seeing. And then like kind of opened up our eyes like, oh yeah, shit, we missed it. We had all this bad taste in our mouth from the past. And so that's like a key trend that feels like it's been around forever, but it's actually been a very short amount of time. So other things like that could pop up and we'll have to, adjust to them. And I think that will, determine the eventual end state. Also, like how much of this tooling, we're very focused on sales right now because you need to be focused, but right, there's going to be an intersection between sales and marketing for product-led growth. We're starting to get pulled by some marketing people. Hey, are there things that we need to start to consider in that direction? Hey, maybe there's this new flavor of product-led customer success that we get pulled into, right? We're trying to stay very focused for now, but there are other areas that I think are very compelling. And it's about, when do we want to take the bets in those directions?
Yeah, it's awesome to hear that there's the market pull rather than you trying to force, some solution out there. They're like, hey, we need this. So that's great validation.
Having tried selling Calixa over the past, even like, so let's say 2.5 years when it was just more like an idea. Initially, people are like, I kind of get it, and just seeing the acceleration of like, no, I get it, I want it. And you're like, wait, what? Where did that happen? And just seeing larger companies come up and say they want that, where I didn't think large companies would flip as soon as they've had. I always thought it would be, farther into 2023 because of this. Hey, I don't want to. I have tools. I don't want. But they're saying like, actually, my problem is more pressing because I have more reps, I have more data. And likely I was built 5+ years ago. So my data's in a mess. And so like there are things that we can do that are really helpful to them.
Yeah. So all of these things you mentioned, what sort of challenges are you running into? Any that you're comfortable sharing?
Challenge is just like, it's new, right? You talk a lot of people, this notion of product-led sales, you meet sales leaders who are across the spectrum. Some, have seen PLG before and get it. Some who come from enterprise and say, I never want to do that again. That is like the most interesting thing. It's not that it's like, they don't want to just be enterprise, I should say, right? So the thing is they're saying like, hey, I need to figure out what product-led sales is. My favorite thing was talking to a rep over at Webflow, and she was like, hey, once I started selling something like this, you can't go back, right? It's just like, it's so much fun when you have this energy from the customer driving you in a direction, and you're pushing with them. And so I think that's like once you get a hit of it, you get really drawn to it. Then there's a lot. Then there's the last set of people who just are like, no, it's enterprise only. There's self-serve. Salespeople don't talk to those people, and then there's enterprise. There's nothing in between. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the sort of more traditional school, and I think that's going to evolve. We actually had this great blog post from somebody who's a sales executive at Twilio for 8 years, and he talked about this notion of like routes to market. And as like the modern CRO, you need to be thinking about routes to market. It's not enterprise, it's not self-serve. It's like, what are the different routes to market that I have? Enterprise is one route to market. Partnerships might be another. A third is like, hey, there's this, product-led sales motion, which you can probably further subdivide when you're at a company the scale of Twilio. So you really got to be thinking it with that mindset.
Got it. And so this next question, I want to maybe open it up to you and do some pondering out loud. There's these different product-led motions. There's more players in the space now. There's a lot more experts who've kind of seen it at different companies and now advise on it. There's programs like Reforge, and I'm curious from your take, when you look into your crystal ball, I don't know if you do that very often, but where do you see this all going? Or where would you like to see it go, if that's a better way to ask it?
Where would I like to see it all going? Yeah, I mean, I think that what's lacking today is people know how to operate a traditional top-down sales process, know how to run it, how to measure it, what tooling to use. It's all very clear and it's all standard. I really like this idea of like, how do you give this sort of product-led sales motion its own place to live and exist, to run. And so all the standards by which to what you should be doing, how you should be doing it, because it requires because it's actually connected into your product. There's a lot more complexity to it, because a good example, I was talking to somebody who runs MarTech at a public PLG company, and she was saying to me, I like product-led sales, but one of the things I'm like trying to figure out is like, I'm going to have these marketing campaigns that are running, and then I'm going to have these other product-led sales touch points. And how do I make sure that I'm not double hitting? And maybe there's some other sales touch point. And because it's so part of these other things that are going on that are being triggered, it gets hard. And then how do you measure it all, right? And so my goal is to sort of give companies like, hey, plop this in, it handles it all. It prioritizes, it lets you configure and prioritize for your reps. It helps you run plays across your rep. It gives reps the insights they need. And it helps you measure the effectiveness. It helps reps give feedback on the quality of these plays. Hey, it learns based on the actions of the users and on your reps, which accounts you should be talking to. It's just, there's a lot more complexity, complexity to the sale, and data complexity that I really think you need to be able to sort of just kind of plop something in that's turnkey that handles it end to end. I don't think anyone should have to build anything. You shouldn't have to think, in the sense you should be tuning and operating rather than tuning and operating a machine, and that machine should be presented to you.
Yeah, the way you're describing it is interesting, because it's making me think about this space a little bit differently, because I came from HubSpot, spent almost 6 years there. So all in one, marketing, sales, customer service, CRM, and all of that. And then what it sounds like you're describing is a platform that's like all in one for product-led growth companies. Like, hey, this is going to be where you coordinate all your marketing activities, where your sales team operates. All your product data is going to go into it, and it's informing your marketing campaigns or your sales outreach and what product notifications get sent out. Granted, I don't know how far away we are, or if that's what you're trying to build, but hearing that as someone,
I think in the limit, it could be that. I was talking to a CRO who owns this person, they have like hundreds of thousands of signups a month. This person owns sales and marketing. And so he's like, I just want one engine across everything. Like, this engine that's running it, can you do that? Can you do that? And it's like, we can be the engine that sort of, in this case, would be like, hey, can you do this thing and fire it over to Marketo? Marketo can still do the thing wherever, however you want to run the thing, but the engine that's doing all the routing at its core, it's coming in through one place. He said, like, I want you to be that place.
Interesting.
I was like, interesting, right? And so,
so it's like a layer above or on top of all of that, connecting it.
It's almost like a layer of connectivity underneath that's connected out to the other things. And it's making it super easy to coordinate across for these different teams. I think that's like, these are great aspirational goals. I think there's a danger in, like, if we try to go wide, right, as a startup, you're gonna lose it, because there are people just in the marketing space trying to do PLG ABM, and I was like, that's great, because there's a problem there. I can't go after that today because I think there's enough opportunity in front of us as we grow. Hey, where are the spaces to expand? But like this notion of like a single machine to operate it, I think that plays nice with the other tooling in your tool set is interesting to me.
Yeah. Painting a very interesting picture that personally I haven't considered, which I'm very excited about after
crazy. Do you think it's like real? Do you think I have my head up my ass?
It maybe sounds a little crazy, but I want to see it. And so it's crazy, but someone has to build it. Maybe it's you and your team.
We'll see. Yeah. And it will be based on what, market demand, and we'll see.
Yeah. That's exciting. All right. So we'll close it out with a couple questions here, and then we'll wrap it up. So what's one opinion you have about business, or could be product that sells if you want to be specific? What opinion do you have that people would disagree with?
Opinion about business that people would disagree with? I don't know. I have to think about it. That's something I'd have to think about. I think for me, you've stumped me. You have to come back to me on that one.
Yeah.
What do other people answer that one? Give me an example, and then I'll.
So the last person I interviewed, he's a VP of growth at a B2B SaaS company, and he shares. Actually, your episode is going to be published after this, so I can just give it a shout out. Joe from Entra shared how he kind of, the way he views the CMO role, he believes like it was sort of neutered as like how the industry views a CMO, and the role got kind of, different parts of it got carved out. Like a CRO role kind of took part of the CMO's role. The chief customer officer might take some of that CMO's role. And he sort of sees a future where the CMO starts becoming a stronger, like kind of reversing that trend. And I was like, never heard about that before. I'm sure a lot of people would disagree about that. Seemed like something.
I kind of agree with him. That like totally, like I get his perspective, and I've seen that within organizations. I know exactly what he means. I don't have anything as edgy. I'm boring in that regard. I
think what usually happens with this question, and this is like a meta because we'll probably just keep this in, but I think the opinions you might have, you just feel so strongly in that you're like, of course this makes sense. I do that all the time, and someone has to tell me like, not everyone believes that. I'm like, well, really?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like the things that I get asked about, I mean, the things that, and not that controversial, but it's like the hardest mind shift is sort of like, it's just like, just thinking long term, think about like, have audacious goals and like, make them scary. And like, this notion of a machine, it's just like having a North Star and going towards something. I think the thing that with candidates that I get, like the thing that they just, I don't know if they don't understand, but it's sort of like, so what's the exit strategy here? Like and I was just like, look, we build value for customers. And if we build enough value, like we have a good outcome of public, private, or something, but like, let's just focus on building value, because we don't build value, we got nothing. And
you got no exit. So
And I think it was something that was taught to me early in my startup career. And then like my brain just shut off and was like, yep, build value for customers. That's how we measure our success. And then like, we build enough value, we can charge for it, and then there'll be momentum. And like, and the other thing is just like, startups, succeed or fail, like just focus on the journey. I don't know, maybe that's easier said, say because I've had some good outcomes, but like, even for the times that haven't been good, it's just like, I've really enjoyed the journey and focused on like the learning, the growth, and yeah. If you're in a startup for the money, I think it's like that may be a good outcome for you, may be exciting, but I think the way to like ensure that you have a great startup experience is always just like making sure you're on the journey for the right reasons. And
yeah, I saw a tweet the other day. I forgot from who, but they're like, if you're interviewing for a startup and you're asking about title, you shouldn't be at a startup. It's like,
I mean, and it's obviously at different stages. It's like earlier on that you should like, but it's just such a different sort of thing where you, I just love the candidates who come in and it's just like this, like they're focused, they're just like their energy, just like the difference between missionaries and mercenaries. When your company's sub 50, it's just like night and day. And like the best thing is finding people who are like the journey you're on, like the building, like the space you're going after. It's just so much good. Then it's incumbent upon the founders of that company and the leadership to make sure they're properly compensated. The goal is not to take advantage of these people, and you almost want to double down on these people because they're going to be the people who set the company up for success.
Yeah. So that concept of missionaries versus mercenaries at your stage, who are you trying to hire right now?
What roles?
Like people? The missionaries or mercenaries?
Oh, missionaries. So you still need as missionary as possible. Like we're not at a stage not at a stage for mercenaries. I just like it. It's also like talking about enjoying the journey. You want a set of people who are in this for the right reasons. And like, I actually don't think it's actually bad to be a mercenary if you want to be. But I get to see the word vibe. But the vibe of our company is like, we're a bunch of people who are earnest, want to do good work, and like excited about this scary journey we on, succeed or fail. And I want somebody who also sort of fits that.
Yeah. So I was going to ask what an impactful piece of advice that you've been given was. You kind of already shared one, which was around like, hey, keep your head down, build, don't worry about like the exit. But is there another piece of advice you've been given that's been helpful throughout?
I would say it's actually not about keeping your heads down. It's just like actually keep your head up on customers and value, right? That is the most important thing. It's not so other pieces of advice. I think it's like the thing that's sort of been transformative, and it's something I still sort of struggle with, is like how to let go and like let other people make decisions. As a leader of a function or anything, that even the first time you're a manager, it's fucking scary. And you can really annoy the people by getting up in their business. And so it's like, what's the right balance between ensuring quality, but also giving people freedom. And I sort of liked, I remember when, and this is like, this is going to sound weird, but I think I remember when like Jack Dorsey referred to himself as like an editor. And I kind of like that idea of like being an editor. It's like people are still producing content, right? Writers still write, but they still put in front of an editor to get feedback and whatnot. And your job as a manager should be something like that, I think. I like this notion of like empowering people to do great works, get them in a great direction. And then your job is sort of like maintaining quality, but also giving the people the freedom to do their job. So it's like it's a tough balance.
Yeah, I love that metaphor of being an editor. Like you're not the one doing all the writing, and you're probably going to have a lot of red lines to start. But eventually, if you're coaching right and editing right, those red lines eventually start turning.
And then at some point, you actually, for most things, don't need to see the work, right? I try to tell people that are like, I may seem like I'm upping your business a lot, but that's the start. And once I see the quality of your work and the understanding, and we're vibing, we're aligned, I need to see less and less. And then you can actually do more and more of the proactive communication. And it's just like, you just go run. So when there's 100% trust, you don't actually have to see most of that person's work, right? Yeah. So
yeah, that's the dream. All right.
Just measure by metrics at that point, right? Just trust the person and let them run.
If the metrics aren't good, then you jump in.
We have a conversation. You don't actually oftentimes like you shouldn't be doing the work, or you probably don't have any unique insight. It's just that external challenge. I need an external challenge. That's what the board's for, right? To like, hey, like, you might have your head up your ass there. You might not be seeing something. Or you might be asking a tough question of yourself. I think everyone is not because I'm smarter than that other person, because other people are probably smarter than me. It's just having that external question being asked of you. And sometimes you kind of get a little bit blind, a little bit, or you avoid the hard question because it's very natural as a human to do that.
Yeah. All right. So last question here is, where can people find you on the internet?
I'm a very unexciting Twitter follow. I'm Thomas Schiavone, my full name. You can find company Get Calixa on Twitter. Though actually the best place to follow us is Calixa on LinkedIn. We put most of our content there, and it's Calixa.io. And you should feel free to email me. I'm just Thomas@Calixa.io. I like hearing from people. I like talking. So
amazing. We'll make sure to include all those links in the show notes. Thomas, thanks so much for the time. I really appreciated this conversation.
Thanks so much.